That's me. Hi, everybody. I guess I'll just go. I'm Peter Merholz, and something I realized as we were getting ready for this is that my name, Peter, is an anagram of our host's name, Preet. So do with that as you will. Uh, Yesterday afternoon, Preet reached out and said, "Hey, I saw that you signed up for the conference. Awesome. Would you like to speak? We've had a scheduled snafu." And I said, "Well, I've got this talk on design at scale is people." And he said, "Sounds great. Let's do it." So here I am, and I'll just dive right in. So um, let me make sure I've got, oops, everything set up. Just so you all know, I'm experiencing a little bit of internet weirdness. So if there's a lag or the voice isn't necessarily synced with the audio, apologies. But we did some testing and it should still come across okay. So as Preet mentioned, I co-wrote Org Designs, and I've become very interested in how design organizations scale and how they maintain their effectiveness as scale. And something that I noticed, I'll right here with, which is when we talk scale, the conversation usually starts with design systems. Yesterday, I sat in on some of the sessions. It was a lot of design systems. And so if you do search for design at scale, you get a lot of articles that talk about design systems enabling scale. The other thing that you might hear about are processes that help in activities across a scaling organization. This was a search for double diamond. There's a lot of double diamonds out there. And the reason we get these two conversations, either about design systems or about process, is there's these two driving considerations when it comes to design at scale. One is, how do we maintain consistent quality as we grow? So that's where you see, well, actually both fit into that. And then additionally, not only how do we maintain quality, how do we maintain velocity? One of the concerns is as you scale is that things slow down. So how do you maintain velocity as you grow? You maintain velocity. You can maintain velocity through the application of design systems and processes that keep things moving at the same clip. However, design operates in a broader context. Everything is ordering a service. I've got a selection here of things that used to be products and are now services. Lyft. On a car, you can just have one show up. Peloton. I actually have an elliptical trainer in the room I'm talking to you with that does not have some fancy setup, but it's actually harder and harder to buy exercise gear that doesn't have some monthly service attached. Instead of buying DVDs, you subscribe to streaming services. People's homes are becoming services through Airbnb. And as an author, when you go to O'Reilly.com, it's actually really hard to find books because they've taken all the content from the books and turned them into, as it shows here, a learning platform that you sign up for, you subscribe to, and all that content comes to you as a service. And so if everything is becoming a service, what we need to remember is that the products and features that we are building, they're simply a manifestation of this service relationship. This is an illustration from an old adaptive path project we did around travel experiences. And I'm just showing this to illustrate that when we think about experiences from the perspective of like a customer journey, you start realizing there's so many different things going on. There's phone calls, there's kiosks, there's websites, there's mobile phones, there's other people that you interact with. The things that we design, which are primarily these digital experiences, are part of this larger service relationship that we are supporting. And when it comes to a service relationship, what people have to consider is their experience. There's not a thing necessarily. You go on an amazing travel experience. Yes, you've maybe taken some pictures or had some souvenirs, but the value is that experience that you've had. And so when you dive into this experience map that we built, we talk a lot about things like thinking and feeling. This is what people come away with after engaging in experience. Are the thoughts and feelings that they have. And because of, oh, sorry, one last point. As a service grows, so do the chances of fissures in this end-to-end experience, right? The more complex it gets, the more opportunity there is for breakpoints between different aspects of the experience. And so because of this, the feelings and thinkings and complexity, we need to realize a third objective when it comes to design at scale, and that is ensuring coherence as you grow. How do you make sure that those experiences that you build hang together and don't feel fractured, don't feel, don't demonstrate the silos of the organization that is putting together those experiences? Mechanistic modes of product and service delivery have tapped out. It's harder to realize greater efficiency, right? We've done what we can to try to remove all the errors, all the cruft from these services that we're offering, and the opportunity that design is valuable. It reintroduces humanism into a corporate business and technological context that had forgotten people, right? We got so focused on efficiency and on operation and business value, et cetera, that we kind of lost sight of the people that we're building this stuff for. And I see design as this Trojan horse that allows us to re-inject this concern for people back into the work that we do. This is Steve Jobs from one of his later presentations. I've always loved at the intersection of technology and liberal arts, and this is in terms of Apple's success isn't because it was just a technology company, but that it brought this understanding of people. That's what the liberal arts recognizes, also sometimes called the humanities, into their work. And this is a quote from much earlier in Jobs' career, where he talks about design. Design is the fundamental soul of a man-made creation that ends up expressing itself in successive outer layers of the product or service. I love that definition, but it begs a question as we talk about design at scale. If design is the soul, it begs the question, how do you scale soul? Now, that's grand, highfalutin. I'm not going to quite get to that, but that's kind of what we're aspiring to do, right? So when we talk about design systems and processes, we're talking about a couple of items that are important, but which really raise the floor for quality and speed. But on their own, they don't have soul. The systems don't have souls, processes don't have souls. And there's a risk that they become a focus in and of themselves, that you spend so much time thinking about process or following process or investing in this design system so that you can more rapidly deploy product. They become such a focus on themselves that you actually inhibit innovation. You're no longer interested in raising the ceiling. There's a quote from Jeremy Keith from Clearleft, a web designer and developer who's been a leading kind of proponent of design systems from their inception. Design systems take their place in a long history of dehumanizing approaches to manufacturing, like Taylorism. The priorities of scientific management are the same as those of design systems, increasing efficiency and enforcing consistency, right? Those are those goals around speed and quality. But if, again, when you focus on it, you end up dehumanizing. You know, this is kind of the language of robots and automation. So what we need to do is figure out, how do we re-engage people and culture? Because in order to maintain its soul, design at scale must rest on this foundation of culture and people. So we're going to start with culture, and we're going to talk about two aspects of culture: building culture within the design team, and then what does it mean to instill that design culture throughout the company. So as an organization grows, those qualities that served it when it was small no longer hold. you can't manage the culture informally when you're all just sitting around a conference room, and that's, you know, perhaps a virtual conference room these days. But when there's only so many folks that you can do that, you can get away with a lot without making it explicit. But as a team grows, you now have to, used to be implicit, explicit. You have to make what used to be informal, formal. So where I'm going to begin, and this is one of the drums I beat a lot, is the importance of a charter for a design organization. This becomes the kind of founding document of your design org culture. Along the bottom, you'll see a URL there that leads to a blog post on how to create your own charter. And I'll be talking about the elements of a charter that are also referred to in that blog post. A design organization, their identity has typically been defined by non-designers, right? In some passive, unintentional way. Before there was a design org, there were people who said we need design, and then they hired designers, and there were expectations put on that design organization that those designers were not necessarily part of developing. And non-designers tend to have a narrow view of what design can offer. And so as design organizations scale, it's crucial that they take the reins of their own identity. And there's 4 elements I'll talk about. Purpose. Why does the team exist? Values. What are the values that the team upholds, particularly in the face of challenges? Norms. How does the team behave, both internally and with others? And then measures of success. How do we know that we're doing the right thing? So starting with purpose. Why does the team exist? Or you should ask yourself, why does my team exist? What is its purpose? Over 2020, I did charter building exercises with a number of design teams. I'm going to share a couple of the purpose statements that we generated, just so you get a sense of what it is I'm referring to. So this was for a highly technical company. The product design team champions human values throughout strategy and development and empowers users by taming technical complexity and designing reliable, safe, and approachable experiences. The important thing here was this was a design team that was really seen as kind of execution oriented, make it pretty, not even make it pretty, just make it work types. And what they wanted to reclaim was championing human values, really making sure that people are at the center of the product development conversation, that they get involved in strategy, right? So that they're brought in when they can actually make an impact. This goes all the way back. I saw Bob Baxley's talk 2 days ago, right? And talking about that lowest layer stuff, like designers need to be involved in those questions. So this was part of this purpose statement was their attempt to kind of reclaim that entire mission that they know that they could deliver on. For a different organization, this is a publication that I worked with. They really saw themselves at the intersection of readers, creators, so these would be writers and photographers, and the business. And that intersection, the product design team champions all readers through crafting engaging, enriching, and enduring experiences. So they saw their readers as their primary audience that they wanted to support, but they needed to do so in a way that put all these things in balance. So once you have a sense of what your purpose is, your mission, why you exist, then you need to identify what are the values that you uphold. I'm not going to read all of this in detail. This was for the company that I had the left-hand mission statement earlier, the more technical company. And we, through a period of a lot of kind of workshopping together using Miro, we landed on these 4 values: curiosity, approachability, Kaizen or continuous improvement, and being empathetic, or empathy as a value. Right? And so these were the values that the team would uphold. This would be kind of how they wanted to be perceived in the work that they do. And these values are crucial for then informing what norms that an organization has. How do we behave? How do we show up with one another? How do we show up with people outside of the design team when we're working cross-functionally? And when thinking of norms, there's a set of norms that are kind of emerging that are common to almost every organization. So here I have on the left, this with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the top, you see psychological safety. That has emerged as an extremely crucial norm, you know, that any team needs in order to be successful. This image in particular comes from work that Google did researching effective product teams. And they had a hypothesis that the most effective teams were going to be the teams with the strongest performers. What they found was that that wasn't actually true. The most effective teams were the teams that scored highest on psychological safety. So what it says here might be a little hard to read. Team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other, right? So a psychologically safe space is one where you can be you can be your full self, you can contribute fully and not fear or risk retribution, punishment, ostracizing, whatever it is. You can call your boss out if you think that they're going down the wrong path or misguided. Team members can call one another out. You know, you don't want to be brutal about it. And we'll get to that in a moment with radical candor. And you can also have crazy ideas, and you're not going to be dismissed or discounted because you're going down a path that might be a little strange. If it doesn't work, okay, it was worth a shot. It was worth a try. Another norm that's emerging in it with every design team I talk about is radical candor. I actually have the book here on my bookshelf, and you see that in the upper right-hand corner. Almost every design organization that I work with finds itself in the upper left-hand corner of ruinous empathy, right? So you care, but you're not willing to challenge because you don't want to make people upset. And the point of radical candor, this comes from Kim Scott, is that you want to care, you want to demonstrate that care, but you need to be able to challenge. You need to be able to address directly what you're seeing. So this is a norm that teams that I'm working with are trying to take on. Now, there's these kinds of norms that are becoming kind of commonly understood, but then usually through the work that I do, I've helped teams unpack other norms. And this was one for a brand design team I supported last year, where after I talked about behavior, we realized there was this kind of yes, either or. There was a balance to be struck. It wasn't all one thing or the other, right? So on the left-hand side, you have practice with empathy, kindness, even love. It's a little bit strange when you're in a business context and people are talking about loving one another, but this team was owning that. And this kind of touches on the radical candor part, but also candor and get to resolution in the moment, right? So we're not going to let that empathy, kindness, and love inhibit our ability to do great work. Be honest, direct, and respectful and critique, and really not about you. It's about the work. This is one that often comes up, right? As you're a member of a team, you're told to be a good team player. It's not about you. Don't bring an ego. So subsume personal pride for what's best in the team. But if you're struggling, if you're having trouble, you don't want to just take it on the chin and stew silently. You need to speak out. And so be vocal about what you need to succeed. So these norms may or may not work for you. They work for the team that I was supporting, and going through that process of making explicit your norms is important so that you now know how to behave with how we behave with one another, and then how leaders in particular know what behavior to model. And then as part of the norm, there's kind of this meta norm is you basically call one another out when you're not behaving as these norms are encouraging. So then the last part, and this might not feel as cultural, but it's actually pretty important in terms of understanding if your culture is thriving and is succeeding, is how do you know we've achieved success? So this goes back to that highly technical software company. They had a set of measures of success that we identified. And the first one you see is team health. And that actually addresses very much kind of matters of employee engagement, employee happiness, morale improvement, no or low regrettable attrition. But then other qualities in terms of things like organizational integration and influence. Are we getting involved at the right times doing our work so that we actually have that impact that we know we could have? Delivering quality. And organizations are nothing if the work that they're delivering isn't good. So are we delivering quality experiences? And then design systems, because every design organization I'm working with is very active in building a design system and very concerned about getting other teams to it. But these measures of success are signposts that help you understand if you're delivering on culture, right? Your team's health is defined by how well it fulfills this charter. And you could kind of interpret health as are you measuring up to the cultural standards that you've set? So that was talking about culture within the design org. There's also a matter of scale culture, design culture company wide. I'm going to talk about a few tactics that I've seen that work in this regard, or a few qualities of what demonstrates successful design culture within the organization. High among them is, do you have singular design leadership, i.e. some type of head of design, VP of design, SVP of design. You're hearing now much more about chief design officers that are a single head of ideally all design. So here I have it: product design, marketing design, design ops, reporting up to a head of design. That is a demonstration of a strong design culture. When you have a single head of design who's responsible for that function of all the design that is happening in an organization. It's another sign of that kind of organizational culture strength is that head of design is no more than 2 levels from the CEO. And you're seeing increasingly them being only 1 level from the CEO. If your head of design is further down in the organization, that is an indicator design is not being supported or invested in as it should be. And there's no reason that your head of design shouldn't be 2 levels from the CEO if IBM, one of the largest companies on earth, have their design general manager be 2 levels from the CEO. This is Ginny Rometty. She's no longer the CEO of IBM. She's the one who established IBM Design, working with Phil Gilbert, and that initiative that I'm guessing many of you are, if not most of you, are familiar with. It required the CEO to say, this is a commitment I am making and that we are making as a company. But it was also an interesting indicator that it wasn't buried. Phil Gilbert basically reported to her when she was CEO. And so you need that demonstration. Now, if you're not seeing this kind of current organizational commitment or placement for design, something that one thing you do is figure out how to help more and more people understand and embrace design. When we're talking about scaling design culture, it's not just about scaling the design team, so that helps, but how do we make this company a culture that embraces and understands something about design and design practice, whatever work is they're doing. So do you have some type of human-centered design 101 or design thinking practice where you're bringing non-designers in and helping them embrace basic design practices to improve their work? Literally in every company I've talked to where they've made this an initiative, it has made things better for the design team, because what it does is it ends up priming the rest of the organization to value design so that they are clamoring for a scale design team that can now deliver on that promise. So talked about culture. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about people. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to be talking about managing people and some of the kind of the importance of things like professional development and career paths and nurturing people. That stuff is important. And I'm happy about that in Q&A if that's something we want to talk about. I'm more going to talk about roles that enable scale. How do we, if we think back to what it looked like to scale design in the organization, particularly ensure coherence, what are roles that enable scale? So when you look at a design organization, this is one that's got about on it. You see a VP at the top, a couple of design directors. I would ask you, what are the most important roles in this organization? You might say it's the leadership, right? It's the VP, design directors, research director, because they have these big teams and they're senior folks. And you can make them that those are the most important roles. But I would argue that the most important roles in the organization are actually what I call the team. Now, I use team lead as a role. Some of these team leads might be managers and actually manage the people that they work with. That's a separate conversation. Again, happy to have that conversation. When I'm talking about team leads, I'm talking about a more senior designer leading a team of 4, 5, 6 designers towards some end, towards some goal, towards some product product or service delivery. And these roles are crucial for a number of reasons. Team leads have a set of relationships that are somewhat unique. They manage down, so they have to have this coaching relationship with their team, getting the most out of their team, providing a vision for success, making sure that those team members feel like people, not just kind of cogs in a machine. And because these team leads are one level above those who are delivering the design, the team lead has the primary responsibility for upholding those standards of quality, making sure that what the team is delivering is at the level of quality that we would all expect. That's one set of relationships, but team leads are also having to manage, to be a diplomat, working with product managers and their peers. And this is where we strike another balance, where team leads, we need them to recognize that kind of being part of a team, and that alongside our cross-functional peers, we're in this together. And so, you know, when your product manager comes to you and says, we don't have enough time to do this long process that you were hoping to do, or the engineers come to you saying no, do not avoid victim stances. I too often see designers recoil into these victim stances when they're told no, or when they're not given enough time. We need to recognize those folks are doing their best, and that we all need to work together. And it's our job to understand their perspective, to understand why they don't think we have enough time, to understand why they're saying no, so that we can work with them, so we can have a conversation about, well, maybe yes, maybe we can, because you do need to be able to know for your ideals. This is why you do that charter and culture work, so that you understand what it is you represent as a design leader. And having those principles, having a purpose, gives you the foundation for a better conversation with your peers. Diplomacy doesn't mean being a pushover. We're not talking about just like doing what you're told, not being a team member. That's just being a servant. Instead, we're members of the team. We have desires and goals and objectives ourselves. And so we need to work together with our cross-functional peers to figure out how we can all best succeed. The last part that I want to address is these team leads then also need to manage up, right? They're representing the work of a team. They're often having to show that work to executives and other stakeholders. They're sometimes needing to get input from those folks. And this is where team leads often find themselves in the role of being the shit umbrella, where sometimes those executives say things that you know, have feelings about the designs that aren't. And there's this concept of the swoop and poop, where an executive who hasn't seen the work, you know, all along the process comes in not long before it's shipping, says this is terrible, and then flies, you know, so craps on it and then flies away, right? And so now your job as a team lead is to figure out what to do with that. Ideally, shielding the team, trying to prevent them from getting spun up about this type of feedback, making sure that they remain focused. Another way that you shield the team is making sure that they don't spread too thin, right? Executives and other stakeholders might come at them saying, oh, I just need a couple hours of your time for this, or can I have you work on this for a couple of weeks? You need to protect the team so that they can remain focused, while your job as the team lead is to have these relationships to understand what's going on around you. Because of what pivots around them, the team lead is the most important role on the team. Team leads are those in the trenches stewards of the design culture that we were talking about before. So that's one reason why team leads are so important. The other reason that they're so important is coherence. Let's say you have a bunch of product teams and you now need to orchestrate them. You need to coordinate them into an overarching experience. You might group them into a set of stages on a journey. I like to organize my design teams by personas and the journey that they're on. So let's say you're an e-commerce experience. You have buyers. Those buyers are on a journey. And so you might have a set of teams that go along that journey, a discovery team, a purchase team, and a post-purchase team. Those team leads have a responsibility to make sure that end-to-end experience is together, right? They work across one another, making sure that this flow works, and then they kind of translate those that understanding down to their team. right? These people, not systems, are the soul of design at scale. This is where that at scale soul lives, is these people working right at the point of delivery, but checking in with one another to make sure this all hangs together. So as you scale, you're maintaining that kind of quality and that coherence. I'm going to say one more thing. This actually, I originally gave a talk at a conference called Design at Scale, and there was an earlier speaker, Cornelius, many of you might know from the Canucks conference in Ottawa, and he was giving a talk on going from kind of the details of design through feature, product, service to ecosystem and global design, and trying to help map this. And I won't repeat everything he said, but it is at these higher levels of design that scale is a challenge, right? How do we make sure that we are delivering services and ecosystems that hang together? And that touches with something that I've been thinking about and even writing a lot about, which is this idea of the super senior IC. So we talked about the team leads before. Another role that helps enable scale are principal designers and design architects who operate at this very senior level, right? A design architect reporting to a VP, principal designer reporting to a design director, and they're overseeing how the teams below them are working well together and making sure that there's a strategy and creative vision that hangs that all together. And we're seeing this role more and more, and it becomes this opportunity. I know tomorrow, I believe, or on Friday, there's going to be a discussion of career paths and career ladders. And this is an emerging one that we're seeing more and more of, that super senior individual contributor without, and not always an expectation of becoming a manager. So this humanist foundation of people and culture provides the soul. Vision aligns the distributed effort, right? So if you have a large scaled organization, you need a vision that gets all those people moving in the same direction. We didn't really talk about vision. That's a subject for a different talk. Then you can use those processes and systems to move you towards that vision, to realize that ultimate value. And that ensures that these systems are serving people, not themselves. And with that, I thank you.